Life Struggles, episode 5. I would like to introduce my host. I'm starting from top left. Jams, welcome.
What's good, bro? What's good, everybody? Good evening.
Evening.
Hey.
You good?
Yeah.
Welcome to Links. How you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Well, I'm good, you know.
Good.
And the Forbes.
Wingman's here, bro. What can I say, bro? Like, it's been a couple sessions I've gone missing, but I'm back. You know, spicy wings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to welcome Simone. How you doing?
Evening, guys. I'm good. How are you?
Not bad, thanks.
We're good.
And last but not least, Shayla. Or shall I call you Money Shayla?
Hi. No, I'm not Money Shayla. I've had a new change of heart, thanks.
So how's everyone today?
I'm doing
Hot.
well.
Doing good. Doing
You're
good,
hot.
bro.
Enjoying the weather.
Too hot, but
Sweating, bro. Sweating.
Oh, you see how dark I am, bro? Man, sun's not treating me right here, bro. It's got me extra black.
Oh, so 4 hot topics this week.
Mhm.
I'm going to start with Jams. Have you got a topic you would like to discuss?
What? As in a hot topic, something that's been in the news?
Every week we have a brief discussion on a sort of current affair that's occurred during the week. Is there something that you would like to discuss?
I think one of the biggest stories that's affected us here in England, pun intended here, and globally, I guess, has been the Euros, hasn't it? You know, England going out in the Euro finals. You know, our first finals of any international competition in 55 years to the Italians. You know, and obviously the backlash that some of our players of colour, to use that expression, has been used in the media, have suffered as a result of that, which is obviously just totally abhorrent and just outrageous. You know, don't know about you guys, but I'm an avid football follower. You know, football, you know, this season hasn't been brilliant, you know, Premier League wise, you know, purely because of COVID and whatnot. It's not quite the same when the fans aren't there. But you know, it was good to see fans that, you know, at these international games, especially at Wembley, and getting behind the team and whatnot. You know, but yeah, watching the final, you know, I was confident that England, you know, the stage was set, isn't it? You know, us getting that far, it being at Wembley, you know, it's like the stage was set. I don't know about you guys. You know, first half was quite good in terms of England. You know, I thought, you know, during the halftime, Southgate should have made some changes. You know, change things up. Got a plethora of talent on the bench. You know what I mean? Why bring all those players unless they're going to come on? You know, impact players as well. Didn't make any changes. You know, I'm watching the clock, 60 minutes, whatever. You knew how it went, innit? And you just had that sinking feeling coming towards the end of the game that you knew it was going to go to penalties. And invariably, you know, England's history with penalties. And if it's going to go to penalties, no faith in the squad, you know. But I don't know about you guys. I had this feeling, this interest in recent days, you know, the players have made statements, they've released statements on their social media accounts and whatever. But I had this feeling when I was watching the game live with some of my friends and whatever, that, you know, the players that are going to step up are going to be black players. And you know that if they miss, all that's going to be on the headlines is, you know, stuff to do with, like, you know, race and racial, you know, it's these players' fault, why we lost and whatever. And lo and behold, that's what kind of transpired. And it just boggles the mind. Yeah, I respect the way that the players themselves have kind of, like, you know, responded to it, and not only that, but the team and those that kind of surround the players and whatnot, you know. But the whole thing is now, you know, about regulation. You know, are we gonna, you know, see some new regulation in terms of, like, you know, what people can say on social media and so on and so forth, and, you know, all that kind of pertains to that, you know. So that's the hot topic, man. I don't know what you guys kind of think on it.
Can I interject there? So, personally, though it is the minority, I'm kind of glad that we didn't win it. The reason why I'm saying that is because even our Prime Minister, what he's chosen to do about it is a joke. So that is clearly showing that he don't care about it either. So, you know, how much do we have to go through for them to make changes? We're in 2021 and we're having the same discussions year in, year out.
It's a boring conversation. Yeah,
exactly.
it is.
Anything in football, all you do is give them a match ban or fine, and we move on again. Is what is really going to change. So though I get it's not the majority's fault, but unless we really address it, and I don't really know these minor gestures, I mean a proper change, which unfortunately I don't think they're going to do. What's your thoughts, Paulson?
Bro, like it was 1-1. No, it was 1-0. It was cool. It went 1-1. I turned off the TV and I went to bed because I've seen this play out many a time in it. I knew where this was going. I didn't fathom that what would happen if 3 black players went up to take the penalty and missed in it. But when I woke up and saw 3 black players miss, I was like, whoa. I headed straight to Twitter and I started seeing all the racial abuse in it. And then I'm seeing Boris Johnson and Preeti Patel say, oh, this is abhorrent. But I'm like, wait, Preeti Patel, weren't you the one saying how taking the knee is, they should be embarrassed and now they're getting racial abuse? You're like, you don't understand where it's coming from. I don't understand.
Exactly.
Like you said, I then thought, oh, people who give racial abuse are going to get a 1-match ban. And I immediately, I always do this now when I try to figure out racial things. I'm like, what if the racial abuse had been directed towards another ethnic minority, like Jewish people, who I call the untouchables, innit? Because you cannot critique anyone from the Jewish faith because your career is a wrap. Your job, your social status, your marriage, if you're married, like. But when it's us, it's always like the lowest common denominator. Like, oh, yeah, we'll give you 1-match ban and that'll be it. And I'm like, come on, man. It's a joke now. I don't even like talking about it. Whatever, innit? Like, and then I go into work and I hear people talking about, oh, I think them being allowed to take penalties was like all BLM. And I'm like, what are you guys actually on about? I'm hearing these conversations in the office, like, yeah. But as we do, we just have to just dust it off, carry on. Because the moment I do say something, people are like, why are you reacting like that for? And I'm like, do you know how many times a day I hear this and I just ignore it? And the one time you lot think I'm being overreactive. So it's whatever, innit? Okay? I don't think if I was a black football player, I would play for England anymore. Like, have your all-white team, innit? Or whatever you want. But I'm not. It's sad, but that's my feelings on it. I won't play for you no more.
Yeah. Innit? I agree. And especially when you've got the Prime Minister who's meant to represent the country and clearly he doesn't care. Because he's coming up with a little gesture in regards to we'll just give them a match ban if they're caught being racist online. Like, that's going to solve the issue. Though I can definitely appreciate that for those who aren't racist, it's a bit, it'll be frustrating. But this has been going on a long time. So I think these token gestures needs to stop. And something real needs to happen. You see?
Yeah, like for me, like just looking at the whole situation, like Link said, it's boring. It's almost like we go around in this massive circle where we have this type of conversation. Something happened in 3 months' time, we'll have the same circular conversation.
Again.
People will ask for some sort of change. No change will happen. Someone will get a ban. But all this does is highlight what we say all the time: is football is still extremely racist, right? If you look at something as a miss, England's missed about 50 million penalties. Like this is like England are the king of missing penalties. You must have about 95 white brothers that's missed penalties and about 6 black brothers missed penalties in sort of the 55 years since last. And you can see where how heavy the racism is. That's the first thing they go for, is the color of the person's skin, rather than to say if they were people complain about the fact that all 3 penalties is actually quite poor, right? I would almost gravitate towards the fact that the penalties are poor. But the fact that they gravitate straight towards the player, the color of the player, it just lets me know, one, why I don't actually even like watching England, and secondly, why I always say on top of my head is, why don't these players pay for their native country? Why do they even bother playing for England? Like, don't you these guys make enough money for their club? We're not talking about, say for instance, Raheem Sterling. You think he doesn't make enough money at Man City? He doesn't need England's money. What does he need England's money in the promotion for? Go play for Jamaica. I'm not saying that that is the answer, but play for your native country, man. I don't know.
Well, this question is to Simone. Do you think that when a player is born in a different country, he should be allowed to play for another country?
Yeah, I think you should be, but I think you need to be welcomed and supported And I think if that's something that's not going to happen, then I'm in agreement. I wouldn't want my son to play for England for fear of verbal, physical abuse, possibly worse, just for the color of his skin. You know, his ethnic origin is Jamaican and St. Lucia. And I would be sad to say, oh, we'll go play for, because number one, I don't think St. Lucia has a football team. I think I know Jamaica does, but I'm assuming they're not big because I don't really follow football so much. But if I had to make a choice for my son, I would much rather he went and played for Jamaica, that's maybe not as well known, and known he would be treated like his peers, than to ever play for England, ever. I was really disappointed. I watched it. That's the only match I watched, which was the finals.
Mhm.
And I thought like everybody else. As soon as I saw those gents miss the penalty, I already knew. I didn't even look at Twitter the next day because I knew exactly what was going to be displayed.
Same.
So you're just not surprised by the news. Do you know what I mean? I wish I could say I was, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Don't you think by all the top talent for example, Jamaica deflecting to play for England, don't you think that is harming the country that they're born from?
I agree. It's a bit like I'd do the same thing if you compare it to athletics.
Exactly.
How the standard of Jamaican athletics kind of like petered out because most of the athletes were defecting to like USA or Canada. Obviously, Jamaica had to then create a structure for those guys and not then leak out and all go to America. So you have to create something that's gonna like tempt them to come in and do it. That's why they did it. Now we have the academic structure. If they wanted to go get scholarships, so on and so forth, that's there. So now we retain all the talent. So I think for these national teams, I think they also need to do a lot bit more. They can't just say, okay, Ryan Stone's from Jamaica, then you just expect him to come and play for Jamaica. I think they kind of maybe need to do a lot bit of courting as well, right? There needs to be something done. It can't just be as simple as, okay, yeah, your mom's from Nigeria, so go play for Nigeria. I'm not saying that. You just got to gauge the situation, right?
But then how then do you improve the disparity economically? So the same like how you've got clubs in the Champions League which always win it, all the best players tend to play for the best teams. You're basically pinching all the top talent.
I think to change that, you're going to have to change the whole ruling full stop that surrounds what qualification for countries and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that comes into it. All they're doing is just leading on the legalities of it. It's not like athletics is creating their own legal rules. They're just going on based on the rules that's already out there. So I think you'd have to change the whole structure of naturalization and stuff like that. I'm not sure how you would even. That's a lot. There's a lot of changes that need to be done, to be fair.
Okay. And last question to Shayla. So how did you feel after seeing all the racial abuse to the 3 black players?
I didn't really like it at all. But I don't like it's. I feel like it's just something that's always there. Every minute is something when it comes to race in this country. One week it's another thing. Next week, like the missing black boys, and then it's the racism in football, and then it's BLM. It's just always something, and nothing's going to change. It's just a news headline for them, but it's not going to make a difference in terms of what they choose to do about it. I feel like even the football players themselves, it's like, I feel like it's a mentality thing as well. Because remember, a lot of the black footballers, they were raised in, like, they didn't come from that much of, didn't come from money. So it's like it's a money, they're getting paid a lot of money to play for England. So for them to go to a team that's like, not really paying them much, it's a mentality thing. I feel like after a while it affects them that this is happening to them, because I'm sure it's not just the people outside on the stadium fields that are being racist to them. It's some people inside the actual business. So it's a lot that there's a lot that they're taking in. But I feel like it's a mentality thing where they're getting paid to do a job, so they just do the job. Whereas if they knew they didn't need to tolerate, if they in their mind said they don't need to tolerate that, I don't need to tolerate that just for money. It's not just, but they're probably thinking they got to feed their family. They got a lot of people depending on them. It goes deeper than that for them. That's probably the reason why they're not making a change or really trying to do too much, because they don't want to lose the opportunity. And they know as a black man, it's not that easy to get an opportunity like that You know, if you know what I mean, because
Yeah,
of
I understand.
what the society that we live in at the minute.
Okay.
But I guess for them it's hard and it's just not nice to see, and I don't know what you can do about it, to be honest.
I think to be honest, I think we might have to just double check how much these football players actually get paid for playing for their country. I'm not sure significantly it's any sort of significant amount. I think where the leniency to go for England, it's regarding sort of other sponsorship deals. It's not necessarily your match day money that they're necessarily worrying about. I think it's definitely all the other merchandise that comes along, like Gillette and all these other companies that are sort of sponsor England, right? I think that's where the drive comes from. But yeah, it shows definitely money is the driver, right? That's the mindset, and money is more important than anything else to them, right? And if you're on £250,000 a week by your club, and you want to go and play for England to get called a monkey for extra 20 grand a week, 20 grand, then you're just as bad as the people that are flipping shouting the abuse from the terrace.
I suppose it's the same like that Ozil situation when he started to speak out about China, and Arsenal had a sponsorship deal with China. And as soon as he started to speak certain things about concerning that situation, obviously they were now concerned that they were going to lose that sponsorship deal with China. So hence why lots of players tend to not want to speak out about certain things, in case it sort of damages or harms the club. But do you think that is a good enough reason, James, to not speak out?
I don't think it's a good enough reason per se. Everyone has their own kind of moral compass, isn't it? You know, so picking up on a few things that people kind of articulated there. Yeah, I agree with lots of the points. But in terms of like, black players not necessarily playing for England or for their nation, it's not just as simple as that, of staging a boycott, because again, like you or I, if we're kind of like, if you're born in England and you've grown up here, you're going to want to play for that. If you're a footballer, you kind of dream of playing for the English national team. Even if you've got relatives from Jamaica or from wherever, another country, if you've never been there or you haven't spent time there, you don't identify yourself nationally as being from there in that sense. I mean, obviously you're proud of your culture, your heritage, but you want to play for England, as it were. So I mean, in terms of money talks, doesn't it? You got to hit the bottom line. But I mean, what's in my mind at the moment is, Mahatma Gandhi, that quote, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I guess like, this kind of whole concept of what players are doing now, they are being more outspoken. They are using social media. Marcus Rashford, being, a big kind of advocate, on political matters that affect him and his local community and so on. Raheem Sterling, others as well, So, I mean, I think the intention is, for them to kind of to be there to represent. Representation is a key thing, isn't it? And obviously they're the ones that hopefully are going to bring in this change. I don't know, maybe it's a reach, but I don't see it being too kind of, distant from the whole civil rights movement that they had in the US. What we're kind of seeing in a sense with some of these players kind of, taking a stance and kind of speaking out against racism in football and online abuse and so on and so forth, is not too far detached from the civil rights movement, where that first wave of people were the ones that were going out on the front lines, taking the abuse, sometimes physical, violent, whatever, in order to pave the way for us to come through, so hopefully, the fact that, this is getting media attention right now, whereas, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it wasn't. It was kind of just being brushed aside. Progress is happening. It might not necessarily be the way in which we want to see it. And again, it is the same old story, but, slow progress is being made, so there aren't any easy wins. But some of the stuff I've heard kind of online and listening to kind of LBC and radio phone-in shows, particularly, because a lot of the focus has been in terms of like, online abuse, what they're kind of dubbing like, what they're calling it, cyber racism in a sense, so, kind of calling, these big companies, Facebook and Instagram, whomever, to kind of, bring in some censorship to kind of punish these people that are known to be making these kind of racial comments and whatever, whatever. And some people were saying, when it comes to like online betting platforms, you have to like, have you have to be a particular age, you have to like have a driver's license, you have to kind of have proof of who you are. And obviously then you can be tracked in that particular way. I'm sure like, these big tech companies can come up with something similar to kind of help track down these individuals who are perpetrators and obviously then punish them, adequately. That could be a deterrent, but who knows? There's not an easy win.
Social media, that would never happen. Huh?
So they can track you now anyway.
They can track you, yeah, now.
If they really
don't
want
care.
to track you, they can
Of
do it
course
now.
they can. Of course
They
they
don't-
can.
They
They're
don't
not
care. They
either.
censor the word COVID, but they don't censor the word, the race. They don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Remember they got I think was it the FBI? I think about a couple of years ago they sent some sort of request to Google to Amazon to send them a recording that somebody made through their Amazon Echo.
Oh yes.
And he picked
I heard
up
about
like
this.
basically like I think it was like someone was getting murdered or something like that, and they did send a subpoena to request that recording. Like if they want, as you say, they want that certain level of information, and they
Yeah, fine.
really want it, they're gonna get that.
Exactly.
I agree.
This question is to Paulson. Would you consider your culture to be British, or would you consider your culture to be from where your parents are from?
Right, I would consider it to be where my parents are from. But if I go back to Antigua or Curacao or Barbados or wherever, they're going to remind me that most of the stuff I do is very much British, innit? So
yes.
but then I look at like my white counterparts, whoever are all growing up here, and they do things very differently to what I do. So culturally, I think I'm very West Indian in it. But when I'm in the West Indies, they look at me like I'm a tourist. So
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Same question to Simone.
I don't know. I go by what I eat, yeah, and I don't eat English food. So
that's exactly what I was thinking of. Sorry.
so that's how I see the situation in a one statement.
Okay. Same question to Shayla.
What was the question again? Sorry.
So the question is, culturally, do you see yourself as being British or from where your parents are from?
I see myself being where my parents are from.
Okay. Same question to Forbes.
Yeah, I would say it's a mixture to be totally honest, right? So I like Lincoln said in my mind, I like to believe I am very Jamaican in my culture, but also at the same time I do like a penny pasta, yeah. So which is so far away.
That's Italian.
Italian.
I like saying you get me.
Like you said, fish and chips.
Yeah. I don't mind going to the seaside and having the fish and chips, you get me. But also at the same time, I want an oxtail and fried dumpling. Yeah, I can have both, right?
Absolutely.
So, but culturally, deep down, I do still always feel Jamaican. But as like going back to what I was saying, as I say, when I go back to Jamaica, they call me foreigner the minute I say hello. So it's like, yeah, the perception is really tricky. It's really tricky.
Okay.
But I will play for Jamaica if I had a chance anyway. So.
Okay. Same question to Jams.
There's a difference like between culture and nationality.
Yes.
You know, so I mean, yeah, culturally, like, what am I? I'm a South Londoner. You know.
No, but what my point is, I didn't say England or English. I said British because from the whole classification. So culturally, would you consider yourself British or where your parents are from?
Again, there's a distinction between culture and nationality, isn't it? British is my nationality. That's how I would define myself, as a nationality.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, again, culturally, just like some of you guys here, I grew up in South London, isn't it? In the 80s and 90s. Like South London is like a melting pot of like, of Jamaican / kind of like, West African influences and so on, So culturally, that's kind of what I identify with, some of those customs, traditions and foods, But yeah, again, the difference between culture and nationality,
Yeah, basically, Jam explained it a lot better than I could. I could generally explain it. He had a better explanation of it. I agree with what he kind of said because I eat jerk chicken and fried rice. So what do you what does that make me, right?
Yeah. So my question was more to see what you consider yourself to be. Just because we consider ourselves to be either from Jamaica, that doesn't mean that we don't do lots of things which are considered to be very English. But it's the fact that we've grown up in this country. And the fact that even though we've grown up all these years, we do consider ourselves to be where our parents are from, rather than where we're born. You see, and that's probably because we identify closer in regards to how we were raised in our environment, whether or not it's via the food, whether or not it's via the way they speak, whether or not it's via the way they dance, all these things.
Music, culture, yeah, it's all
Exactly.
contributing factors.
Exactly. Okay. So we saw in the news that they're investigating in regards to who put that camera in that MP's room, Hancock's room. Thank you. Now, surely there's bigger issues to delve into. What do you think, Jams?
As ever, like with the media, distraction, isn't it? Distraction tactics, man. You know, like, you know, who cares about whether the camera was there? The fact of the matter is, like, you know, someone who has one of the highest positions in office in the country, you know, the person who's responsible for kind of bringing in these rules and these restrictions that have had us live in the way that we've been living for the best part of 2 years now, is, you know, it's been exposed that they seemingly believe that they're above these kind of rules and regulations, laws even, you know what I mean? Yeah. Something that we're all aware of, you know what I mean? But now it's kind of in plain view that we can kind of see this. And what, like, you know, what Paulson was alluding to there now, you know, again, Monday the 19th, isn't it? We're supposed to be kind of coming out of, like, you know, this last wave of lockdown and so on and so forth, you know. In the midst of it as well, if you tune into the news, you know, statistics coming out, you know, England has one of the largest kind of COVID transaction rates, like in Europe, like in the world, I think it is, you know, however many thousands of cases per day at a time in which, again, the language is worse than what it was this time a year ago, you know. So it's bizarre. But again, this whole thing about Hancock, again, you know, the camera, who put the camera there, it's just detracting away from what the main story is, isn't it? You know.
So over in France, they're reporting that people who are in the healthcare field, they have to take the vaccine. Now, do you think that people should be forced to take it?
No, that's messing with people's free will and human rights. Absolutely not. Because they don't know. If they said that some people could be allergic to it, you can't force people to take something that you don't even know if it's going to affect them or not. That's got to be their choice, because there's a lot of people that have been affected, and then once they've been affected, they're telling them that it's nothing to do with the jab. So no.
Okay, so same question to Simone. Do you think that people should be forced?
Absolutely not. Everyone has free will, and the moment that you start bribing people to get what you want, because this is what I see as bribery. I can't travel, I can't go to a concert, I can't get on a plane, whatever it may be. I don't know if I'm still one of those conspiracists, but I still think there's an underlying issue that we just don't know what it is yet, and I'm still waiting for it to eventually come to light. I myself am allergic to several drugs, including penicillin, which will kill me. So I am very much the last person that would like to take the vaccine. And I made a joke of it on Facebook in a comment the other day, because someone said to me, oh, but you can go get allergy tested. I was like, I have bras older than this vaccine, and you just want me to put some alien stuff in my body and pray for the best. Meanwhile, I have 3 children that need me. So what happens if mummy is gone? Do you know what I mean? So for me, personally, I feel like I keep myself healthy. I feel like if you're a healthy person, you keep your immune system up, etc., etc. I don't see the necessity of it. I still think it's each to their own, but I don't think anybody has a right to tell someone, well, you weren't going to get this job, or you can't work in healthcare, vulnerable people, pensions, our schools, if you don't get a vaccine. I think it's extremely unfair.
Especially when it doesn't stop you from getting COVID or anyone else around you.
Precisely.
It's ridiculous.
Precisely. Totally agree.
Has anyone seen what the Americans have done? They basically got BG, you know BG, American old rapper, right? They got him to remix Back That Thing Up with Vax That Thing Up. Girl, you look good when you vax that thing up. I swear, you could not like it. Go on YouTube and watch.
Head into YouTube as we speak.
Yeah, send me the link to that, bro. Send me the link to that.
I thought somebody went in and like kind of messed it up and kind of redid it. No, it was officially somebody paid him to go and remix his biggest vaccine. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, you don't want that vaccine. You get BG vaccine. Yeah, I'm good, bro.
So do you think that was a ploy to get the general public to take it, or would you think that was a ploy specifically for black people?
Black people.
Specifically for
black people. But black people, of course.
What they think people respond to. But to be really honest, that is what most black people respond to. Like, they wouldn't do it if they didn't think it wouldn't work. So it just speaks volumes. There ain't no middle class white kids thinking like, I'm gonna go vax that thing off after hearing that song. They're gonna be like, who's this guy? Don't hear Michael Bublé remixing one of these Christmas songs saying
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, or Britney Spears, it won't work. Like, so
I just don't get why they're pushing it so hard. It's just ridiculous. Why are you pushing it so hard? Why?
But
Especially to the black
you know
community.
where my biggest where I'm really, really baffled is how is it that the case that obviously we are probably one of the most highly vaccinated countries in Europe, right? But yet our numbers are so high. Even though we've been vaccinated, it's like, isn't the vaccination was supposed to reverse the number, bring the trend of the number down, but the number is up, but more people
I think
are
they're
vaccinated.
confused by their
What's the
numbers
point
too.
of the vaccination?
That's
then?
why they keep going up and down.
It's
I believe
ridiculous.
the vaccine doesn't stop you from catching it. I believe it stops you from spreading it. It's something weird.
No, so from what I've read, that it doesn't stop you from catching it, but it softens in regards to the impact. So you won't be hospitalized, or you won't get the severe impact in regards to your whole immune system, lungs shutting down, and so on.
But the large majority of people are healthy anyway, so that's what I don't understand. You making everybody go out and get it. If that's the case, then ask the vulnerable to get it and let it be the vulnerable's choice whether they go with the red pill or the blue pill. Do you know what I mean? But to ask the whole world of people to get it, where there is loads of teenagers, loads of under 40s, loads of under 50s, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm confused by it still.
Okay.
Don't you remember when they were pushing it? They were pushing people to get the vaccine, saying it will stop them from getting COVID, but then they had to change it because they realized that wasn't the case. They've changed it to fit what was going on because people realize they're still catching COVID and they're getting the jab, so it doesn't make sense. So it's like they're just they're changing as they go along because they realize it's not it's not adding up.
It's just the blind leading the blind. That's what I tell everybody that asks me. It's the blind lead. They don't know no more than I know right now.
And unfortunately, because a lot of companies are losing money, they're now pressurizing their employees to go and get it so they can carry on making money. So it seems like the whole issue is more about money than it is about...
Like the holidays. The holiday, same thing. How can you now go from having a 10-day quarantine to 5-day quarantine if you pay extra money? It's just like,
right,
come on, I get to pay to get released earlier, but I still might. Do you care if I carry COVID or not? I'm confused. Like, it's just ridiculous.
It's crazy. Okay.
And most people walk around with uncertified masks anyway. I'll be walking around with napkins around their faces and like,
true.
bits of like old rinsed out t-shirt. Like, it's like, but that's not even like medically that ain't gonna prevent nothing. Not even a common. Not even a common cold. Like, serious.
They're getting a lot of people on their side though through the holiday thing that they've changed up. Like even my friends, they were like, nope, not getting the vaccine, not getting the vaccine. As soon as Boris said that if you got the 2 doses of vaccine and you don't have to do the quarantine, I'm telling you, the whole of my chat group were like, okay, I'm booking my vaccine.
Yeah,
they're getting a lot of people through this holiday.
I'm still getting posts and it still gets ripped up. It goes straight in my shedder. When my text comes, instant delete, remove.
Fair enough. Well, that's the end of current affairs. We're going to move swiftly on to our main topic, which Daniela slightly touched on in regards to if she wasn't here and who's going to look after her children. And I wasn't going to throw in there the father, but I thought I will wait to this main topic so we can discuss absent fathers. So this first question will be posed to Jams. Is there any reason why a father should be absent from their child's life?
Is there any reason? It's quite a challenging question to answer directly. Because everyone's circumstances are different. If you are someone, if you're a man, who's had if you're a man who's been in a consensual relationship, a loving relationship, you know, and you've had a child as a result of that relationship, then I know you can argue, well, no, there shouldn't be any reason as to why, you know, the father shouldn't be involved in the child's life and whatever. But, you know, things can go sideways, you know. Yeah, you can be in a relationship and then you kind of start having, you know, friction, you know, with the mum, you know, and it, you know, that could be a thing. Or again, people can have children for the wrong and has decided to keep it, and that can cause, you know, issues. Some people, you know, just aren't fit to be fathers in the first instance, you know, and equally, you know, there are some mothers that, you know, for whatever reason, again, your relationship, we spoke in an earlier episode about communication and whatever, a relationship can break down because of external pressures and whatnot. And then for whatever reason, you know, the man feels as though they can't stay around, and then, you know, the woman kind of, you know, weaponizes, you know, the child against the man and actively tries to prevent, you know, the dad from seeing their children, you know. And this is something that's kind of affected me personally on a number of levels, you know, both in my own childhood and now as a man and as a father as well, you know. So as I say, there are a plethora of reasons. And again, like, you know, statistics show, you know, that children, you know, in terms of their psychological and their emotional development, they benefit from having two parents in the household, despite what people's personal views on that are. You know, statistics obviously don't lie. You know, we're all kind of human beings, you know, so up to a particular age,
they don't
children
lie.
No, well, no. If they're in a household, you know, that have kind of, you know, two parents who are kind of sound of mind and whatever, and obviously have the child's best interests at heart, then that child flourishes in comparison to a child that may have been in a one-parent household with, you know, a loving and capable parent. You know, it's just the dynamic obviously benefits us as people. So as I say, you know, it's a deep thing to explore, and again, there is like a whole kind of, you know, multitude of reasons why, you know, dads may not necessarily be around. Some because they don't want to, others because they may feel as though they have no choice because they've been forced into that kind of position, you know.
James mentioned one point, sorry, Links. He mentioned about if they're in a loving consensual relationship. So what if it was due to a one-night stand and the female decided to have the child? Now, should I still see the child, irrespective of whether or not I wanted that child or not?
The short answer? No. Next question. No, what it is it's the woman's body. By all means, she has every right, obviously. She wants to have the child and she has that child to have that child. Yeah. But in the same token, if we're following your example of just a one-night stand, you probably don't even know this individual's surname, what they're financially like, what their mental state is like, whether that's the ideal person to bring a child into the world with, then you can't expect the father to stick around. I feel this conversation of absentee fathers shouldn't be separated from single mothers. I think they're a joint topic. It's really hard to discuss them on their own, but I'll just say that and let you ask Forbes or someone else.
So Simone, do you agree with Links?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with him. If this is on the basis that you said and using that specific example, then like he said, it's down to the female's body to choose what she wants to do, but to have no expectations of somebody that you probably knew for what, 12 hours, fact. So
someone.
Precisely. So I don't really feel in that circumstance that there should be any pressure on the male to deliver anything or support or anything, because I'm sure when he went into that one night stand, and I understand accidents happen, he didn't come out of it thinking he was going to be a dad 6 weeks later. So yeah, I'm in agreement.
Shayla, do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and same question to Forbes. Do you agree?
What was the question again?
So the question is, if you had a one night stand with a female and she got pregnant, do you feel that the man should be responsible and basically be around for the child?
Oh wait, sorry, I didn't hear that bit. No, I don't. I wait, is it yes? If I say yes, does that mean that what you said, that he should be responsible for the child.
No,
Yes.
if you say yes, you think he shouldn't be responsible if you agree with us. No, then he should be
no,
responsible.
I feel like it takes two. So if you're gonna lay down and do the deed, then you need to understand that what can come of it. Wrap up or
Okay.
get stung.
Okay. So, Forbes.
I don't agree with it. I think a lot of it comes down to, I know Simone is saying it's a woman's choice and it's her body, she can decide to do what she wants. But also in the day, I think that's definitely a choice that needs to be made for two. If you're gonna meet somebody in a nightclub and one night stand and she get pregnant, there's a very high chance you ain't got a clue that she's pregnant in the first place. There's a very high chance you don't see her again. If you manage to see her again and she's like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant, I've had a child, and she then laid it on you and said, okay, I've had a child is 1 year old or whatever, and then give you opportunity to step in and play a part, and then you decide no, then they got issue. But I think from the offset, no.
Okay, so Forbes has thrown in a slight caveat. In that scenario, the two people are in the same city, so there is a high possibility that you may see that person again. Yes? So, knowing that, does your opinion change?
My personal opinion, or like,
does your personal opinion change on the fact that he doesn't need to see the child?
No, my personal opinion doesn't change. You know,
Okay.
kind of like, I guess what Delma's alluded to and others is like, you know, if you're talking about a one night stand,
Yes.
it's almost like kind of like, you know, some contracting that kind of takes place, isn't it? It's like,
Give me a second.
we're gonna go home together, you know, as someone mentioned, it's like, you know, the idea is that I'm not looking to be a father, like, you know, in weeks and months to come, and equally, like, you know, if the woman's plan was to get pregnant, you know, from that one night stand, then that begs a number of questions in itself as well, you know. So as I say, there's almost an unwritten contract that kind of goes with that kind of scenario. Again, you asking my personal opinion, I for one aren't someone who would be up for like a one night stand. There's never been like my kind of my MO, as it were, you know, for this very reason, like to avoid kind of scenarios such as this, you know. So
okay, what will happen? Because obviously in the current environment where people are sleeping around quite freely, now, based on the current environment, we could end up with loads of absent fathers based on you guys' views, obviously excluding Shayla because she disagreed. But surely the fact is that, you know, yes, we understand that no one went into the contract to have a child, but we all know the birds and the bees, and we all know what could be a possible outcome once you lie down with a female. So we all know that there is a possibility that you could end up having a child for a hour or two, you know, enjoyment, or for some 5 minutes. So, you know, Paulson will surely, irrespective of whether or not that was not the initial agreement, that you're going to have obviously another child in the world who's basically fatherless.
well, why are you drawing for Paulson after you say 5 minutes, man?
Pardon? Oh.
I private, yeah, and you got to bait me up in front of the women then. You know what?
Oh dear.
Yeah, I hear everything you're saying now, Z. And my opinion still doesn't change. Like, I know some women who will begrudge taking money from people quicker than they would have a one night stand with someone, innit? Like, to me, the perspective is all back to front. Like, by all means, it's your body, and if you want to have the child, you are more. I can't tell you, it's your body. I have no right to tell you what to do with your body. But in the same token, we had a one night stand. You don't know me from Adam. Like, you cannot expect me to be there. I might be more detrimental to have in your child's life because you know nothing about me. Like, so it might be more dangerous for me to stick around just because it's statistically speaking more beneficial to have two parents in the household than for you to raise a child on your own. I might be the sickest individual going, like, and I'm just going to turn your kids and your head left. Like, you cannot expect that of me. Alternatively, I could be a great individual and stick around. But we're not really having that conversation, because if I was that individual and a woman tells me she's pregnant, we're like, cool, let's do the right thing, innit? Still, it doesn't mean we will go the distance. So to me, it's a no-brainer. If that ever happened, like Jam, I've never had one that time, but if it ever happened, the girl said to me, I'm pregnant, I would stick around and try to raise that child. But at the same time, I couldn't get mad with the mother if years down the line we're just not getting on, like, and it's toxic in the household. It's fully my fault, and it's fully her fault because we knew nothing about each other before we slept with each other.
Okay, so same, actually, not slightly different question to Simone. So, do you think that the person who had the one night stand should be financially responsible for that child?
I'm just going to say how it is. Naturally, yes, because statistically speaking, I'm sure, and I haven't checked, but I'm sure if I go in my phone and check, 9 times out of 10, the mother is left with the child. And that could be through circumstances like that was previously said. The partner could pass away. Whatever, there's many different circumstances and scenarios why a woman is going to be left financially with the child. But I just think, yes, is the answer to the question. She should be financially responsible for the child. Afterwards, your body, and you decided to keep it, which means you knew what that entailed. That 18 years of your life now is going to be committed to that child. If she didn't want to handle the financial, there would be other options. There's adoption. You don't necessarily need to go to a clinic, but there's many other options that you could take and not be left with the child if you didn't want to be. So it just depends on whether you're selfish or not.
So, Shayla, do you agree that the man shouldn't be responsible financially for that child in this scenario?
He should.
He should.
You decided to lay down and do the deed. There's your seed. If you're going to be if you're going to be out there doing these things, then understand that you might have to look after a child if you're going to keep being irresponsible. Like, I don't understand. It shouldn't always fall on the woman. Yeah. Obviously, she decides to keep it. That's her. But I feel like as a responsibility as a man, that's what you should be doing. But obviously, not many men. Some men just want to do what they're doing and just move on. But I feel like they should be held accountable.
Question. Why is
do
it?
you agree?
Now, one second. What's to say? Why is it that whenever a girl gets pregnant, it's always the man needs to strap up? How about she also use a bit of use a little bit of common sense as well, and also make sure that he comes strap up? It's almost like after the deed is done, then it's your fault. You should have made sure you wear a condom. Where was your chat?
They both should.
When I was coming in raw, you didn't say nothing. Come on. Yeah, I think there's more balance in this conversation. Huh?
So Jams, do you agree that the man shouldn't be financially responsible in this scenario?
The thing is, like, you know, the law dictates, isn't it, that if you're a biological parent, like, you have to, like, you know, pay child support, child maintenance, isn't it, until the child is like age 18, isn't it? So it doesn't matter, like, whether I think yes or no. Where I have a point of contention, though, is where, you know, again, you're talking about absent fathers. If you have a child, and for whatever reason, again, from a man's perspective, you're the father, you know, you want to be actively involved in your child's life, but for whatever reason, the mother doesn't want you to be. And any conversation you're having is only ever about money. That's when it becomes an issue, you know. So it's all well and good to talk about, you know, who's responsible, blah, 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 blah. But when you've got a father who is willing and able to obviously take and a major problematic situation that to be in, you know. But again, like, you know, it comes back to, as we say, you know, this kind of like, you know, non-verbal contracting. It's like, if you're going to lay down with someone and obviously have a child, it's like, yes, you have to kind of, you know, to take on board the burden that kind of comes with that, you know. So that's down to the individual's choice, isn't it, you know?
Well, I won't say choice. As you pointed out, the law stipulates that burden to be borne.
No, the law. But when I say choice, I mean like kind of what Shayla said. You know what I mean? Oh. If I'm a guy and I have to sleep around, then obviously, you know, I have to be aware that, you know, potential consequences that I could get someone pregnant, isn't it? And therefore, I've got to kind of take what comes along with that.
Yeah, I don't think we should lean on the law though. There was that case 18 months ago where the male was ordered to pay child maintenance for a child that weren't his. He found out his wife cheated on him, but because he didn't ask her for a paternity test within the first 3 years, he's now liable for the child. I am not married, but I can only imagine that if I was married and my wife had a baby and I said, "Can you take a paternity test?" how that conversation was going to go down. Like, so in that case, the law's wrong. I think there's agreed as well. If I knew a woman for like however long and we slept together on a one night stand, that is a totally different scenario, isn't it? I think the man is equally responsible and should stick around. If I go out to a nightclub and meet a woman and she gets pregnant, as Forbes said, good luck finding me. And if you find me, good luck trying to convince me to now spend the next 8 years of my life, like Simone said, with you raising this child when I know nothing about you. Like, I was just trying to get my needs met. Like, do me a favor. Like,
let's slightly shift the scenario.
Okay, can I ask one question before we go in? Because I know just for Jams, I know Jams mentioned statistics about that is statistically proven that kids with two parents are, I don't know, are they sort of academically more, is it academic or are they psychologically more balanced? I'm trying to
psychologically, emotionally, academically, as a result.
How do they track that back? How do they track that back to the child only having one parent or versus the child having two parents?
I don't know. When it comes to these psychological studies, they normally have like wide samples and whatever, So I don't know. I can find some specific ones. I don't know off the top of my head.
You know why I asked that question? Because it always fascinates me a little bit because I hear that those statistics get brandished all the time, right? And I always think, okay, how do you even go? I'd love to know the reverse engineering of that. How do you?
So what they do is, from when I studied psychology, you have three groups. You have a controlled group, which is where you control the situation. And you can measure everything. Then you just have like, I can't remember the word, but it's like a natural group, a single mother or a single father, and you just monitor the child over a period of time. Then there's a third group. This is to work out your averages. I also forget what the name of this third group is called, where you again monitor the child's progress over a certain period of time. And you can say, okay, in the control group, where we removed one of the parents, which is unethical and wrong, this is what happened with the child, innit? In the other group where the parents naturally separated, this is what happened with the child. In the third group where the parents stayed together, this is what happened with the child, innit? And they just take an average. So it's not every child, you're right. But they base it off those three groups, what happened with each child over the same length of time, in the same school, because it has to be exactly the same, innit? And then they say, this is what we can confirm is likely to happen, not will actually happen.
But how that study sounds if they are injecting two parents and then removing one and then seeing how the reaction is. How about if they only ever had one parent from the start? How does that child? How would that? I'd love to know how a child that never had a father there. How would that child mentally be any different when it doesn't have that? It's that whole saying, and how can you miss what you don't have, right? And that's why. I don't know enough. That's why I'm asking the question and stuff like that, right?
Are you asking it just from a academic point of view,
or just in general? Because I always like obviously Link kind of brought on how they do the statistics. James mentioned how the statistics is done. I always like to know kind of the reverse engineering of that. Because I always take that and I always say, I'm never too sure when people say that. And I feel that's almost like a safety net. It's almost like easier to say that rather than deal with the issues where kids struggle. It's easy. Oh yeah, you grew up with just a mum, so maybe psychologically you're less likely to achieve more than somebody with two parents. And I'm like, I don't know.
No, I hear what you're saying, Forbes. You know what I mean? And without kind of going off the beaten track, but like I can only talk on that from my own kind of personal journey. Growing up, I just grew up with my mum. You get to certain milestones, when you become a teenager and adolescent, and it's like I've got questions, that as a man or like as a young man that my mum couldn't answer, and that's when I kind of realized for myself, self-evidently that, having a father around or a father figure would obviously be of some kind of benefit to me. You know what I mean?
But don't most of the questions you have as kids get answered by other kids? And most of the situations.
No, that's dangerous.
Yeah, that is dangerous. I remember Nelsie.
So your mom and dad taught you how to have sex and stuff, right? How did you learn those things?
No, but this is what I was just about to address. That Nelsie, I don't know if you remember this year, but we had our sex education, and we had to fill out a questionnaire, right? And me and you turned to each other, and I don't know what the question was. I'm not gonna bring it up, but you was like, "Can that happen?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then you was like, "I'm gonna write this down." I'm like, "All right, I'll write down the opposite." We had no clue. But Forbes, that's the classic answer to your question. Nosy and I were trying to figure this stuff out with no internet amongst ourselves. Like, and it was about pregnancy and how women get pregnant. I don't know if you remember yet, Nosy.
No.
I had no clue. Like no clue.
Yeah. Don't think that children should get, education from other children, because a lot of times it seems
I'm not saying
seems
that's
to
how
be
it's
misinformed.
done, but that's how it's actually done.
Okay. So I'm going to switch back slightly to a slightly different scenario. Now, we've got a male and a female who were in a relationship, and obviously the two have now split up and have gone their separate ways. The female is now with a new partner. Should that new partner be responsible financially for the children? That question goes to Paulson.
No, can I answer that question first? Because that situation is obviously I am more I'm not sure. I'm not gonna talk for Paulson, but just for I am in very similar situation. So for me, I believe as my daughters, because my daughter's mum is in another relationship, and the relationship she's in is very steady and strong, and they live together. And also my daughter and my baby mother's other half have a very good relationship. But when it comes from anything to do with my daughter, that would always be my responsibility. If she was, my baby was ever tell me that he bought my daughter like a pair of Jordans, I'll go 8. That is not his responsibility. Is him and my baby mother. His responsibility is not for my daughter. I don't want to know that he's buying cuddly toys, none of that stuff.
Are you serious?
Bro, that's my daughter.
Okay.
Go and have your own picnic, and you and her can go and build that life, and you can pay. But that's my child. If I am doing the right things as my daughter's father, she don't need another man to go and buy 2 Barbie dolls from the Disney store. Phone me, I'll give you the money. You're gonna buy the Barbie from the Disney store.
So Forbes, what happens? So what happens? I'm slightly digressing, but what happens when it's her birthday and he wants to buy her some kicks? Is that not allowed?
You can buy kicks on her birthday. It's special occasion, right? Different rules. There's a cat. There's a cat. Remember, we get presents from people who don't even know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get presents from somebody else's husband or signed by couples. I get what you're saying. It's a treat. That is a caveat. That's a bit like the previous conversation. That's a caveat. That happens, and I agree with you. I can't control that. And I think I would do it if I was in issues. If I was in a relationship with a woman and she had a child and it's their birthday or special occasion, I would buy it. So I think I am also not naive enough to think because I am her dad, he's not gonna want to kind of do certain things like that. But I try to nip it in the bud really, really, really early, so I don't have to deal with the situations.
Boy,
it's happened before where she said, "Oh, I went out and he bought," and I was like, and I nipped that in the bud dead there. So we haven't had that conversation since. Maybe in years to come that develops as their relationship develops, but as it stands, I kind of it's a
boy. I've got some questions for you, but I won't go there now because I don't want to rile you up. So
no, I'm not like, honestly. I like having an open conversation because it's about life, right? We're trying to find a balance and how people deal with these balances and stuff. And people ask me questions like this all the time, so I'm open, man.
Okay, so question to Paulson, which Forbes answer.
So I think the key thing Forbes said is that he's responsible. I was raised by my stepfather, innit? For a large majority of my life. My father was, I'll come see you on your birthday, I'll come see you at Christmas, and just wouldn't turn up. That went on for a huge chunk of my life, innit? My stepfather would take me and my sister out, and he would get his daughter stuff, my sister, but at the same time, he's not going to let me walk around with holes in my clothes or shoes, because he was a great man, innit? And that's because my dad, biological dad at the time, was not doing what Forbes was doing, innit? I think there's 2 different scenarios. If your dad is like Forbes and he's there, then you should be able to, as the stepfather, take a step back and come in at certain times. If the stepfather is the biological father is not there, is non-existent, I couldn't go into a relationship with a mother who's got 2 kids. I come round, I'm eating nice, I'm wearing the nicest clothes, and they're sitting there, their bellies are rumbling. What kind of man would I be? Like, so I couldn't. I'm not saying other men should, but my conscience wouldn't allow me to do that. I would be like, your fridge is empty. I'm gonna go out and get your food. I don't care that your dad should be doing it, or he's clearly not doing it. Innit? I'm gonna do it. But if the dad's there, Forbes, and he's had the conversation with me and he's handling business, the only reason I would still do it is if I want to make Forbes look bad, innit? And that's a disrespect. Like, so those are the 2 different scenarios.
I agree. I
So,
totally agree.
same question to Jams. Do you think that her new partner is financially responsible?
Nah, like I guess to kind of talk into the sentiments that Forbes and Paulson kind of expressed there, like, you know, yeah, if I'm still actively involved in my child's life, like, you know, one, you know, I'd have like kind of regular contact with my child, you know, so 2, I'd obviously be, you know, legally responsible for paying child maintenance anyway. Anything kind of subsequent to that, I'd like to think that my mum in the first instance will come to me, you know, the child needs X, Y, Z, you know what I mean? You obviously have to be mindful that, you know, that you're not being taken advantage of, that you're not being exploited, you know, because there are some, you know, because in some instances, you know, I've seen my son or my child at the weekend or whatever, you know, he's asked me for X, Y, Z, I've already bought him those things, I'm giving you child maintenance, and now you're asking for this additional stuff, you know, that could be kind of, you know, contentious, as I say, you know, and also we need to be mindful in ourselves, you know, that we're not letting our ego kind of trip us over as well, you know. Again, obviously I can't talk on Forbes' kind of personal situation, but, you know, as a man, you kind of pride and ego kind of takes part as well, isn't it? You know, if your relationship didn't kind of end in the way that you wanted it to, you feel as though maybe there were things that you could have worked on, but it didn't work out, and then now you know that you stand in the way in that sense as well. And again, it's easier said than done, you know what I mean? Because as a man, it's like our primary role again is like kind of to provide, isn't it? Talking to some of the conversations we've had before too, you know, so it's complex. And again, yeah, you know, you shouldn't be offended, but, you know, I'd like to think again, you know, that, yeah, that, you know, that if my child's mum is in another relationship, you know, that this person is actually, you know, of sound of mind and is like, you know, making sure that the well-being of my child when I'm not around is kind of taken care of. You know, yeah, if they're kind of doing too much, as Pick said, it can be seen as a disrespect, you know. And again, it's like the mum could kind of be using that again to kind of as a weapon against you, you know. So there's not an easy response to it in essence, you know.
So Simone, say if you and your ex-partner just don't get along, you just cannot communicate. Now, would you expect your current partner to step in financially?
No, because I can look after my own children. And I wouldn't have that expectation off of him. And I think it would be selfish of me to have that expectation off of him. In my eyes, if the situation isn't like Forbes, who's a willing father, active participant, whether that's, like you said, doesn't have to be financial all the time, but emotionally check in, school, you good? Do you need shoes? Do you need socks? Then no. If it's not like Forbes, I would look after my children and still do by myself.
Do you agree, Shayla?
It depends on what. It depends on if the father is. Wait, do I expect him to do that because I'm not with the partner anymore? I don't expect him to do anything because I feel like I wouldn't expect him to look after my kids, or to do anything like that. Because obviously, like Simone said, those are your kids. You look after your kids regardless. Those are your children, like they're mine. But I feel like as a man, if the relationship between the father and the children is like he's not really putting in, I feel like as a man, it would show the person that he is to me if he does help, and that would make a factor whether I would want to be with a person like that. Because if you can see that the relationship between me and the father of my child is in turmoil and he's now not looking after his kids as he would do because of the fact that I'm not with him, and you're just going to sit there and you're going to watch and you're just going to not even try and help, then I wouldn't want to be with you, because that tells me about your character. So I don't expect him to, but it would show me whether I should continue in a relationship with that person. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Jams, if you and your ex just didn't get along, and obviously you was not financially supporting her, yeah. Now, would you be upset then that her new partner was stepping in to, look after the child, and the child is now calling him dad? How would you feel about that?
Again, not necessarily me personally, but if I'm being totally candid, I guess on some level, yes, because that kind of takes a shot and puts a dent in your ego. And again, as men, that we're proud, isn't it? If you feel as though, if you can't provide and you're kind of being exposed in essence, of your inability to provide and that your economic situation, then again, as I say, that's going to take a dent in your ego, man. And I think most men would feel kind of aware about that. You feel annoyed that,
I agree.
So Simone, would you care about his ego, the fact that he's not providing for your child?
What? And then my child would be calling the other partner dad?
Yes.
That wouldn't happen. No, it wouldn't happen. Look, my children have a dad regardless, because I didn't make my children by myself. But if my ex is not financially whatever, he's just not active in the life, and my existing partner is, even if he did contribute, which I wouldn't expect, but if he did, obviously I wouldn't say no, just like Shayla said. I wouldn't have my children call him dad. They will call him by his name. I'm sorry. I think in my opinion, the only way that you would be calling your stepfather dad is if you didn't know the other one. Where you've just grown up with this person, so you don't know any better. That's the only father figure you've ever had in your life. Then I can accept that. But knowing that someone exists that is your dad, I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah, but I think that children will call whoever they feel is like their dad. So just because your dad is there, he might not be like your dad. He might not act like your dad or do the things that a dad would do for their child. So if their child, I'm talking about like older kids, as they're growing up, the child might acknowledge the man that you're with as dad because he shows them he's there. He's there in their life. He does things for them that a dad would do. Not that you're forcing them to call them dad. The child just adapted that because that's what they feel like a dad, that is their dad.
Totally.
I think it depends on the child because, sorry to cut you, Samantha, as I said, my dad wasn't around, my biological dad, but I never called my stepdad dad. Never.
Me either.
When my biological father did come back into my life, he was still my dad. And my stepdad, I would call his name was Patrick. I called him Paddy, innit, which was close to dad or daddy. But I never called him dad, innit. I'd buy him Father's Day gifts and I bought him a dad ring, but I don't think he actually ever heard the words come out my mouth.
I think it would have been different. Was he around when you was a baby? I think it would have been different if he was there when you was a baby. Because when you're growing up, because as you said, you're putting Father's Day gifts and everything. So if he was there when you was literally a young child, like a baby, you probably would have grown up calling him dad at that point because he came along.
Yeah, so there's
I can't hear you.
So there's the 3-year age gap between me and my sister, who he's the father of. So from 2-3 years old, he was in my life, my stepfather. So 2-3 years old, he's always been there. And I would remember my dad coming around on my 5th birthday and stuff. But my stepdad was there from when I was 2.5. So 2, because he was with my mum for a year, and then on my 3rd, coming on to my 4th birthday, my sister was born. So from a baby, he was there. And I still never said dad. I don't know. You're right, though. Other kids may have. I just didn't. I treated him like he was my dad, though. Everything he said, I respected. He put in too much work with me for me to try to disrespect him in that way, innit? But me saying the word dad, I just don't know why. I felt that was a slide on my biological father.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So, Jams, in regards to Paulson's scenario, would you think you would feel more emotionally affected by your mum being absent or more if it was your dad?
To answer that, though, Nelson, for me, it would be my mum.
Okay. It's the same question to Simone.
My mum.
Same question to Shayla.
If I would have been more affected if my mum was not there or my dad. So you're asking.
Yes. Which one did you think would affect you more, your mum or your dad?
My mum.
Same question to Forbes.
No, bro. I never spent time with my dad to even know.
Okay. Same question to James.
Yeah, man, I couldn't say. You know, again, I grew up without a dad. You know, I do have some memories. My dad passed away when I was quite young, when I was about 6. You know, so I do have some early memories. But I mean, kind of just seeing myself now as a man and the kind of the relationship that I have with my 2 sons, and in addition to my stepchildren, I like to think I'm quite close to them. You know, so yeah, it's difficult for me to answer. I guess traditionally we see a mum as a nurturer, and obviously, you know, children need to be nourished and nurtured in that way. But again, a dad brings a different kind of dimension to the table as well. You know, so I haven't experienced it, so I really couldn't say.
In regards to nature, because we all know naturally the mother raises the child. Obviously there are odd occasions where the father does, you know, but naturally the mother, you know, raises the child. From your perspective, James, where do you think, as a male, where do you think we learn about love?
Well, I don't even know if you can say, like, you know, naturally a mother raises a child. I think it's like more traditionally, like in this day and age, isn't it, as opposed to naturally. You know, this that whole debate around gender and things like this. You know, but anyway, I take your point. And I mean, where do we get our ideas about love? You know, maybe our friends and maybe their relatives, and certainly from stories as well. You know, from kids we're told stories, isn't it? You know, that romanticize. Yeah, from kids you're told stories, isn't it? Whether that story is bloody, forgive my language, like whether that story is like, you know, just thinking off the top of my head, like Hansel and Gretel, or like, you know, Little Red Riding Hood and the relationships that pertain there. You know, we're told stories, isn't it? And we kind of get these ideals, these ideologies from that.
Okay, but what I'm more referring to is, so that tends to happen as you get older, as you introduce into nursery and you start to mix with other young children. But from the age from when you're born, obviously this is generally, yes. Hence why when you're a young child, children tend to sort of run around their mothers, and, you know, always around hugging onto their mothers. Why? Because the first place they learn about love is from their mother, yeah, and about care, and, you know, all those emotions come more from the mother. The father is slightly different dynamic. I'm not personally saying that the dad is not important. That's not what I'm saying to you. But I'm saying to you, men are typically were more the harder exterior. Yeah. Whereas,
I don't know, man. I think prior to the age where we're old enough to go to nursery and start kind of our formal education, you know, is it really, are we gravitating towards our mum for love because we feel loved, or is it more instinct? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Like, you know, certainly if you're only raised by your mum, but again, it's like, yeah, I don't know who's to say that that's the case. You know, in our early years, you mentioned from birth to, like, you know, age 2, 3, when we're able to kind of start to formulate words and have kind of thoughts and whatever. I think it's instinct. Don't breastfeed and whatever, you know. So your child's going to be on formula milk or whatever the case may be, and the dad can play that role, you know.
Okay. So, Simone, do you agree with that?
Is that question for me?
It's for you, Simone.
I would have to agree. I think the first place a child learns is from their mother, and obviously I will be generalizing because not every mother is wonderful, etc., etc. But if we were just going to go with the general, then absolutely yes. I mean, it's not a man's fault. Nature would have it that this woman, this female, holds a baby for up to 40 weeks in her stomach. There is a love and there's a sense of emotion that a dad cannot connect to. And again, not his fault, because you have not gone through the whole journey of the 9 months the same woman has. So I think the delivery of love towards a child is everything that I can only speak for myself, that just breathed out of me for all my 3 children. So a child is, not to say that again that the dad can't, but down to breastfeeding or sense of smell, all those things that children have learned from day dot to 1 to nursery age, it's from their mother. So,
well, in theory, then that's the case. Then you're agreeing with James's point, which is then it's all about instinct. It's not really about a mum teaching them love. A lot of the things you're relating to is done by instinct. I don't think it's dictated by love.
I see where you're going, but you
That's
still have
after
to have a
effects.
sense of love to be able to, for example, a child, as we know, they can go up in that, even if a child cannot talk yet, they can kiss, they can show love through symbols and such and things like this. And I don't think that that's instinct. That's something that is taught. Like you say to a child, you know, you blow a kiss to a baby, the child does it back. That's something that is taught, isn't it? That's not instinct.
Yeah, no, but you're conflating two things there. Babies and
go on,
babies and children are two kind of different things, isn't it? Two different ages. You know?
Yeah, but don't you think
And you-
even
and you
before
talk-
preschool, you still do those things though?
Well, not babies. Babies can't blow kisses.
Yeah, but okay, let's be specific. A 6 month up recognizes a tongue going out, so it's called imitation. So this is something that is taught, and that is love, in my opinion.
Well, like I said, you use breastfeeding as an example. Like nature tells me that if I'm hungry and there's something dangling there that always provides me sustenance, I don't need to love you. I just need to go and get it. Right? I don't really need to. I don't. Think
That's not necessarily true. Because if a mother is stressed out, breastfeeding is not an easy thing, and I can tell you that from experience. I couldn't just shove my breast in my child's mouth because my child was hungry. If I was anxious, or you know, I'm not eating right or whatever, and I'm not supplying, that does make a difference to a child.
But then if you swapped out breastfeeding in these scenarios that's happened with you, if you swap out breastfeeding for a bowl, does the child eat less, or do they just continue on consuming the food?
Some children will not take the bottle. Some children, it doesn't matter how much you try to force it to them, they won't take it.
How hungry are they?
So when you try to pass something that is a foreign object to them,
Yeah,
they will look at it, they'll play about with it. Some might try to put it in their mouth, some might just throw it away. But they're thinking, no, I don't want that. I want the real deal. Because with the real deal is that connection with the mother.
And comfort.
Comfort, exactly. Because
That is love, though.
I never said love, did I? I said comfort.
No, yeah. I'm just making sure Simone knows that interaction ain't love. That's comfort, right?
But I still think you give love through comfort. You hug, you snuggle, you talk. So for me, that's a demonstration of my love. But I see your point. This is why it's a podcast, difference of opinions.
Okay. So
you're also right as well. I'm just
so
Shayla, do you agree? In
I agree?
regards to the first place that a child learns about love is from their mother, generally.
I think there's different types of love, but the love that maybe you're talking about, yeah. And there's different types of love.
Okay. Paulson, do you agree?
Shayla's correct. There is different types of love. So you've got imprint in love, which I think is what Simone and Forbes were having a little conflict about, where a child, that's the reason why doctors give a newborn baby straight to the mother, so it imprints on the mother, in it. So it knows that this is where I go to for protection, for food, and everything else. Yeah. They ran this experiment again in psychology with a monkey. They gave the monkey to a dolly instead of its mother, and the monkey throughout that hold would only go to the dolly, even though it weren't real. But love, like unconditional love, like, are you talking like romantic love? Like,
no.
Okay.
No, father to their child or mother to their child.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's weird because my mother wasn't like, oh, baby, hug. Like, I never really got that from my mother, but I knew she loved me. Like, I'd get it if I fell over and cut my knee, and I would be fine. She goes, "You're right." And the moment she said that, I'd be like, ah. I'd be fine until she said those words, you know. But my mother wasn't like mad, overly affectionate, innit? I think she was trying to raise a man and didn't want to be overbearing. But I never did not feel loved by my mum. But my mum never, as far as I can recall, spoke to me about love. I had to learn about love, true love, the long and hard way, innit?
No, one second. Question for Nelsy. And because obviously it goes on a little bit on what Simone was saying and also on what Links is saying is, do you believe that a mother's love and a father's love is different?
Yes.
Because that's kind of what I think Simone is kind of saying.
Yeah.
And I guess Links is very saying something similar, whereas I'm looking at it and I'm thinking from a father's perspective. I like to believe I love her like a mom, but then I also believe I'm a different person, so my love might be, it's most likely it's going to be different.
Well, everyone
No.
has a different love language, and we should remember that. You know, everyone has a completely different love language. What's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. So,
Yeah, Nels, answer. What are you saying?
Okay, but are you referring to a romantic love, or
No.
are you referring to a mother's love, that unconditional love?
I'm talking about the love that your wife has for your child. Do you think you have that same? Do you think you love your child the same as your wife does, or is it different because you're a man? You love
Okay.
different from a woman.
I would say as much as my wife loves my children,
Okay.
but irrespective of that, I personally think that generally most people would be more heartbroken if their mother left them compared to if their father left them. Now,
Can I be devil's advocate here? Sorry, Forbes, because you just raised an interesting point. Yeah. So does that mean you love your daughter less than your baby mother because you refuse to let the stepfather pay for certain things for her?
No, I think it's that point I was going to make when Jams was making it. I think Jam also made a great point when he said some of that component is also my pride as a man.
Yeah,
of course. Provider. So I think that's more my pride in me as a man wanting to be a provider for my daughter, who is my responsibility. Anything that's my responsibility, I kind of take that right up there as the most important thing.
I agree with you, but when you raised that point, I was like, wait. So if your daughter really needs something for whatever reason, you cannot do it. Unconditional love should say this other person can do it for her. Let him do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the caveat came from when he said, "Oh, what if it's like his birthday, a special occasion?" And I had to then take a step back and say, you know what? If he were to buy something on a birthday, a special occasion, I would be an idiot to really go and create a scenario based on that, especially as he's there as well, and he is also creating a sort of a foundation or a circle of security for her
family.
Yeah, he's creating a family for her. And I'm not naive enough because I don't live there to assume that they can't have a family together. Of course they can have a family. That's what they have. Yes. And I'm saying I am the outsider in this scenario, and I am trying to find that balance to balance their relationship with their family with me, and trying to, make that whole situation coexist.
I think a lot of the issues boil down to our egos as males. Because as males, 100%. We see it as we are the protectors, we are the providers, and another male is sort of stepped into our shoes, into our place. So now they are seen as the family unit, and you're now as the person on the outside. Because
exactly how I explained it, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't you want him to love? Wouldn't you want him to treat your child as they were their own?
I totally. So like on the flip side of me, just rather than just talking, is when I really look at it, I am pro them being a family, because one, that makes my baby mother happy because they're family, it makes my daughter happy because she has a family unit. I wasn't able to then necessarily provide that unit. It doesn't mean that I'm going to deprive my daughter from having that structure, but I always maintain a relationship with both my baby mother and, to a certain degree, as they develop in their relationship with my baby mother's other half, because I think that relationship between me and him is also as important as a lot of things, because he needs to also understand me as a person. I need to understand him as a person, so I can then feel more reassured that my daughter's in a kind of a secure sort of scenario. My baby mother might have her opinion. She might be blinded by love. I need to also make my own self-assessment if I think that this person is also suitable.
So you say that, but there could be a time where she might call him dad.
She'll never call him dad.
Wait, hold on. See, there we go. See, wait, hold on. See, this is why I said that. I didn't want to ask you a question because it could rear you up.
No,
and exactly what I said. What did it do? You see? No. So I'm gonna switch back. Yes.
No, because I would blame my baby mother to ever allow that scenario to develop. Because for somebody that is as active as I am in my daughter's life, for there ever to be a scenario where my daughter calls him dad, that means there is some sort of I am being talked about in the household in some particular way for that scenario to ever develop. That wouldn't just wake up one day.
I don't think so. I think you'd have to ask your child. You'd have to ask your child why she would want to call him dad. That's what you need to ask, because there's a reason why she wants to call him dad.
Yes, because also some children create such a great bond with the person who's in the house, and they see that person as the same as their siblings. So when they see their younger siblings call them dad, they go do the same thing. Why? They see everybody in the house as a family. You see? So, and also they see that person in the house as not their biological dad, but it's not meant to be no disrespect to you, but they're children. Children don't think of it the way you think of it. All they're seeing it as
the amount of pride that gets involved all the time.
No,
Every time.
Very similar. It's very similar to Lynx's situation, because in terms of where Lynx is saying, Lynx would have grown up with visually being aware of who his dad is, and also being visually aware of who his stepdad is. So that's why there was never that boundary where he was able to call his stepdad his dad. He always kept that different because there were two individual characters that he was aware of. Now, fair enough, I think said his biological dad didn't play as much of an effect in his life as he should have, but he knew the difference, and hence why he kept the sort of the
Can I just say something?
Yeah,
Can I just say something? I think that, like, I get what you're saying, but every child is different, right? And I think that people need to understand when it comes to children of single parents, every child is affected differently. So they might respond to the situation that they're in differently. So as you grew up with you respecting that, you understood the line, you know, that was your stepdad and that you had your dad, even though he wasn't there all the time, you had that thin line. But then some kids deal with it differently, where you might have just felt in yourself that I'm not calling this man dad, regardless, my dad is there, I'm not calling this man dad, even though I love him like he's my dad, I'm not calling him. But then there's other kids that might grow up with a needy aspect, where they want to belong in their household. They want to find their identity within their family unit, and it's not that easy to say, you know. So I think a lot of children that come, I don't think any child that grows up in a single household is going to be 100% okay, in a sense of, I can't explain. I know what I'm saying, but I don't know how to say it. But I don't think they're going to be 100% as it would be if they were growing up in a two-parent household. I'm not saying it's better, but I just don't think I think there's going to be something. There's going to be something, whether it comes out in one way or another way. There's going to be something.
So
that's what I think.
Okay, so I can identify with Paulson, but I think that there's a slight caveat to Paulson's scenario, but I won't discuss that. But what I would say is, do you think, Simone, that it is fair that the women get custody of the children?
That's a tricky question. Generally, I would have to say yes. I just feel like when a woman has a baby, I feel like there's a personal commitment. And that's not to say that there's not a personal commitment between a father and a child. But stuff happens, environments happen, situations happen. And as we know, generalizing speaking, children are left most times with the mother. That's not to say that the mother may be the better parent. Again, I'm not suggesting that, but I can see in the eyes of the law, because of the nurture and all that stuff, I can see why people would think that, and I can see why myself, I would think that the child would be better left with the mother. But again, I'm generalizing. I know circumstances. I have friends who were raised by their dads because the mothers was just not good role models in their life. So again, I'm generalizing, but yeah.
So do you agree with that, Shayla?
And everyone knows that if the woman doesn't get custody of their child, then there's something wrong. That's like what people know. That's what most people know. There has to be something seriously wrong why the mother didn't get custody. So yeah, it is. That's the way the system is. The woman usually gets custody of the child.
Forbes is looking vexed now. This question.
No, it's not. I'm not even.
It's the truth, isn't it?
That is the truth, and I think obviously that for one, think that rule should completely change, because if you're gonna talk, I think that rule is based on how traditionally households are set up, where the father is the one that's out, goes out, and the mother's the one that stays in. So technically, she's gonna have more of an advantage than the father. I'm out here working while you're home looking after the child, and the rule gets flipped where if we were to kind of split up because you spent more time at home, then you get given the child. And to be honest, I'm sure some dads are not fighting that anyway. So
Exactly. There you go.
I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't. If I was ever in a scenario where I had to go for custody for my daughter, I'll go in there to try and get the whole thing 100%. But obviously, we're not in a scenario. But I know there's a lot of fathers that probably happy that the mother takes them and
Being,
things.
not being weekend dads.
Huh? I'm a weekend. I would.
Some of them love to only be weekend dads. They don't want to get their home. Most of them don't even keep the picnic on them. They send the picnic to their mother's house and they go about their business. That's why.
You look so what is bread?
She's not lying. She's not lying.
Hey,
oh gosh, you seem to rub up Shayla the wrong way.
Different breed, brother, you know.
I know from my experience. I've just heard it from other people. So.
No, that's true.
Mm.
Same question to you, Links.
Yeah, it's fact that women get the child in custody, and as Shayla said, if they don't, they have to be moving like astronomically wild for the judge not to give them the child. Like, even if they're clearly not the better candidate, the judge will still side with another child. I don't agree with it. Like, if me and my girlfriend now had a child, things didn't work out, she would agree that financially and everything, it would probably be best for the child to be with me, but the judge still want to give the child to her. I'm gonna have to play dirty. I'm gonna have to start drudging up old stuff and go digging and hire private investment.
Stuff, you know.
Like, bruv, when she was in primary school, she did this. When she was in secondary school,
Boy,
you got to start applying cocaine.
That's immature.
Police to come around and
I would have sprinkled cocaine on her while she's sleeping. These images of children. And even then the judge might be like, I don't know, you know, because she's a woman. Like, I'm like, what do you mean, bro? Like,
hey, Paulson, I just hope your girl ain't there.
See me right now. Yeah. She knows, because she can't hide. If she get pregnant and we don't work out, bro, she ain't gonna be able to stop me, you know. I'm gonna go deep.
Oh my God.
Hey, look, I'm gonna go deep. You don't understand.
I ain't gonna lie. I co-sign all the Links' movements, every single piece of.
Because you're a woman and I'm a man, I ain't getting my kid. Even if I'm clearly the more responsible candidate, drop me out. I'm taking my kid.
Yeah, I'm going dirty.
Okay, so Paulson, do you think there's any merit in the fact that the courts award the mother's custody due to the fact that there are many males who do not fully participate in their child's life?
Okay, so that's a different question. If the mother doesn't participate in the child's life, I don't see no reason why you're even trying to fight this in a court situation. Like, you're causing the child anguish amongst anything. Just play ball, play the child maintenance, and see the child as the court required quality time demands it, innit? Like, that's just pride and ego, as we all said. If you're not interested in being in charge, maybe you're just trying to hurt the mum as well, make the mum's life difficult. So in that scenario, stop. I was just about to swear. Stop being that way and just do the right thing by your child, innit? But yeah, I know plenty of men who have no interest in seeing the child, looking after the child, but because they know it will hinder the mother's progression in life or moving on with a new relationship, they'll put every hurdle in front of her to make her life difficult. Even if she meets a new partner who's great for the child and her, he doesn't want that new partner around his child just because it's another man. Like, that's in the scenario. Like, it's weird. Like, I'll never understand that.
Do you agree that lots of males do not fully participate in their child's life? When I mean fully participate, I mean, pardon?
But why? There's a reason to that.
So you tell me, what is this reason?
There's multiple reasons.
Okay, give me some multiple reasons.
Yeah, so the first reason is probably the woman should have never picked him to be a father in the first place. Like I'm not saying all women, but I'm saying you're probably out raving. He came, spoke to you in a club, spent 30 seconds with you. You felt hot and nice. He moved on to the next. You saw chinks in his personality and character flaws, but you ignored them because you know you thought you could change him. And like he's such a great guy, and Shayla, he's got bread. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, please don't involve me. Do not involve me. Thank you very much.
your gut tells you this man is not baby father material, innit? Despite everything you've been raised and taught, and socially you're aware of, you ignore the signs, you have a kid with him, maybe things work out at first and then they go left, innit? That's the first reason things don't work out. There's other reasons. You were in a loving relationship or marriage or whatever, and it just didn't work out, like, unfortunately. Or, do you know, there's multiple reasons. I can't go into all of them here and now, but from my experience, all the women I know, even women in my family and my friends, knew that man was no good. Like, from the jump, knew that man was not baby father material. We told them, family told them, they ignored it. Like, had a baby with this guy, and lo and behold, he's not baby father material. And then they're like, why did this happen? You know why this happened. Like, you knew why this happened.
So are you saying then, generally, it is the female's fault why they have a absent father?
I'm not saying no, it's the female's fault. I think I've realized this, yeah, that we need to educate men and women on relationships, especially women, on what to look for, because it affects the woman more, right? I said this to my sister. I said, when you were growing up, sis, I noticed this with a lot of women, you wanted Prince Charming, the Disney fairy tale Prince Charming, right? I said, then you hit puberty around 13, 14, and you stopped looking at Prince Eric from The Little Mermaid and you started fancying Prince Gaston, like the villain. And no matter how many times we told you, don't go for that, it just pushed you further towards that bad boy, innit? Like, and you didn't come out of that. Like, and some women come out of that straight away, and others just, the more you tell them, the more they go for that, innit? And I don't know what that is. Like, but I'm not going to say it's the woman's fault. There needs to be an education thing. But I've realized some women are just, I've heard this saying so much, like, and I've said it to so many women. I'm like, why did you split up with that guy? And I hear this, he was too nice. And I'm like, what? Like, if that was a car, you gave it back because it was too nice. If that was a plate of food, you didn't eat it because it was too nice. He was too nice. And now you're with a guy who treats you wrong, and I'm like, he's a dog, he's trash. But you chose that guy over the guy that was too nice. Like, it's weird to me. So, no, it's not all women's fault. I think we need to educate men and women. But I just think some women just like the uphill ice skate. Like, I don't know. Whether it's a majority, I couldn't say. I don't know.
Okay, so this is the last question to Simone, but I don't want you to answer it. We're going to have a part 2. Yes? So, do you think in the UK we should have a 50-50 rule where the man and the female have joint custody? Now, you think about that. Yes? And you can answer that on...
No. You can't do the extended boom, 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 boom. Bro, I want to know now.
Yes, you think about that, and discuss that on part 2. So I want to thank you all for joining, and I will see you all on part 2.
Awesome. Have a good evening, guys. Bye.
See you later.